You are listening to the Self-Trust Solution Podcast with Dawn Leday, episode number 108. Welcome back. If you've ever found yourself questioning your dating life or wondering how to build deeper connections, you're in for a treat. Today, we're joined by the incredible Laerke Nielsen, a confidence coach specializing in helping women bring the same level of confidence they display in their careers into their love lives. Laerke is here to shift your perspective on dating, challenge the notion of love at first sight, and introduce the concept of love confidence. If you've ever been caught in the all or nothing mindset when it comes to dating or relationships, this episode will give you tools to approach love with curiosity, courage, and of course, self-trust. Before we dive in, I want to acknowledge that today's conversation focuses primarily on women who date men, because this is Laerke's area of expertise. That said, the insights and strategies we discuss around confidence, self-trust, and building meaningful relationships can apply to anyone, regardless of gender or relationship preferences. So no matter who you are or who you love, there's something valuable here for you, and you are welcome. Let's dive in. Welcome, Laerke.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so honored to get to speak to your listeners.
I know lots of our listeners are definitely either in relationships or want to be in a relationship. And one of the things that you do is help women become more confident in love. What is the biggest mistake you see women making, say, when they're dating?
Yeah, so a typical mistake is that we let attraction lead and guide us in whether we want to continue a dating connection. We talk about early attraction here. So typically what happens is a woman goes on a date, and then if she's not feeling attracted on the first date, she doesn't want to continue. She doesn't want the second date. It's sort of a glorified or romantic idea, so that if it's the right match, then we have all these sparks and chemistry and so on. And we see this in Hollywood movies and all the romantic movies. Problem in that is that we might miss out on someone who is a really good match because we make the decision too early to cut them off because there isn't this attraction and sparks on the very first date.
And what do you suggest they do instead?
Yeah, so I think there is a whole myth around what we can say called love at first sight, where it's actually more useful to think of it, look for curiosity at first sight. Like if you feel curious on the first date, is there something about a man that makes you want to get to know him more? Then that is a very good sign for you to continue dating him. And attraction is important in a relationship, but it's not necessarily there on the very first date. So giving it a little bit more time and then find out, evaluating after a certain number of dates, whether you feel anything. Is there any signs of this could be, you could turn into being attracted to him? Then it's a good idea to continue. So look for curiosity instead of this instant sparks and attraction. And then use the time that you give him to collect data, so to speak. So it's not that I want women to give the guy a chance. I want them to give themselves a chance. When you have more time, you give yourself a chance to base your decision on more information. You have more data before you decide, is this a go or a no-go? Do I want to continue seeing him or not? And so when it comes to attraction, I would say you also don't want to date him for too long and then still not be attracted. So around date number 5, that's where you should have a feeling of, can I imagine being attracted to him, or am I a little bit attracted now? And if there's nothing at all, then of course, no, it's not a good idea to continue. But it can actually develop in time where we get to know someone. We see he has a great sense of humor. He's really kind and attentive. And we start to get to know him more, and then the attraction grows.
I love a few things that you said. Is one, curious at first sight instead of love at first sight.
Yeah.
and really giving yourself a chance. It's not just about giving the other person a chance, which we can focus on in some ways. And it's so that you can collect the data you need to make that decision. So, what is the data that you recommend they look for?
Yeah, so I just want to make it absolutely clear that when we speak about early dating, we can divide the men that we meet into three categories. We can talk about the ones that are a clear no-go, and when there is absolutely no attraction, and we don't even find them interesting. So no need to continue there. Then, of course, there's the group of men where it's very interesting because they're very charming, they're very handsome, and it's all very positive. And there, of course, we want to see, does it continue? Is it just on the first couple of dates, or does it continue? But then there's a big group of, we can call it the gray zone, where there's a lot of men who are men that maybe you wouldn't even notice them if you met them in the street. They're nothing like special looking, they're okay, and they're very kind. In this group, there could be some really good matches that we miss out on if we decide too early whether we want to continue. So that is the group where I think it's just such a shame, because sometimes clients who have been dating for years, they missed out on some good matches in this particular group.
Mm.
And many people who meet their spouse on the dating apps, they afterwards they say when they saw the profile first, they barely even noticed the person. It wasn't love at first sight. It was just someone that looked okay and where it felt okay. But then when they got to know him, they realized it's an amazing person and it's a really good match. So the data you want to collect, just coming back to your question there, you want to look for green flags, as I call it. And here
Mm.
we can talk about the green flags you can see in the early stages, or and then until the mid stages, and then we have the green flags on the more longer term. And so some of the green flags you will be looking for in the beginning is he excited about her? Is he interested in her? Is he asking questions? Is he showing that he really wants to get to know her? That is a very good sign. Of course, we want that to be something that continues, not just on the first date. Another green flag is also that he is actually taking some initiative. He wants to spend time with her. He doesn't just want to chat and take a long time in between the dates, but he's following up and he's moving the relationship forward, or the dating connection forward. And then there is the question of consistency. That's also really important. And that's where we can say it shows up more clearly on a bit longer term or midterm, because it can be easy to be consistent in the first 2 weeks. And then it's a bit more difficult if he's not really into the connection. But that's also about prioritizing the connection, spending the time, really taking the time to get to know someone. Another green flag is looking for generosity. And what I mean by that is being generous with time, with attention, with emotions, with the effort that he makes. And I know there's a lot of discussion about who pays and so on. And so I don't think it's important to focus too much on that. I think what is important is in the first couple of dates is to see his intention, that he has this intention of giving, of supporting, of being there, of making an effort for the connection. And then I have one more here for the early and midterm, and that is reliability. That he's actually doing what he says he will do, and his words match his actions. Again, it's very easy to say the right thing, but actually doing it, that when he does that, that shows that he also means it. So that is what we want to look for in the early to mid stages. And
Yeah.
then once we get to know someone a bit more, it could be at some point that she needs to set a boundary. And there is really important that he respects that. How he's reacting to that boundary is a very valuable information for a woman. So that is necessary. Respect for boundaries, but also think someone who can admit their own mistakes and can apologize and can see their own flaws and that they're not perfect. And ideally also that he can see his role in why past relationships didn't work out. And
Mm,
that is something I think you shouldn't be talking about in the very early stages, at least not on the first date. I mean, we don't want to bring our exes into the early stages of dating. But it's important at some point to find out, what does his relationship history look like?
mm,
Uh, did he have any long-term commitment in the past? And what is his version of why it didn't work out? And can he see his own role in that, or does he think that it's always the other person's fault?
mm.
That, of course, also says something about his emotional maturity.
So, if these are great things to look for at various stages, depending on where they are in the dating process, what is something that they can look for in themselves?
This is where I think there's so many interesting things to look at, because, as you also said in the introduction, that I think the most important relationship we have is the one we have with ourselves. And I have talked about a concept that I call love confidence, which
Mm,
is consists of three major things. And one is, how do we think about ourselves? What is our inner soundtrack? What is the thoughts we have about ourselves as a partner? Do we think that we are a catch and we have a lot to offer to a relationship, or do we keep telling ourselves that we're not interesting enough, we're not good enough, we're not lovable, and so on? That is one thing that we need to look at, and we need to be aware that this is impacting our behavior and how we show up on a date. The second thing is courage, or you could say willingness to feel discomfort, because sometimes it can feel a little bit uncomfortable when we want to be 100% authentic. And that is important. It's important to be ourselves in dating in order to find someone where it's a really good match long term.
mm,
And also to create a connection that is authentic and deep, we also need to allow ourselves to show vulnerability. And that is also something that feels a little bit scary. So having the courage to be authentic and vulnerable is really important in dating. And later on in a relationship, this kind of courage is also important to be able to have difficult conversations where it can feel scary and we might want to rather avoid the conversations because there is some discomfort involved there. So having the courage to face challenging and difficult situations inside a relationship is also important. The third thing is actually commitment to ourselves. And part of this is also self trust, which is quite relevant for this podcast, right? And this is about having clear ideas about what you're looking for and not abandoning that. So being true to what kind of relationship am I looking for? What kind of man do I think I will function with? And so that it's not like we meet someone who's very handsome and attractive, but they don't want a long term commitment. And then we tell ourselves, but that's okay. I can maybe convince him. I can try this anyway. And that's where already there we might abandon our own values. So staying committed to ourselves and to what we believe in. And that is also setting boundaries
mm.
and asking for what we want and desire, both in dating and in relationships. So those
Wonderful.
are three major components of love confidence.
So, how can someone find out their love confidence?
Yeah, I have created a quiz, a test where they can go and answer questions in this test, and then they will get a score from 1 to 10. And this is a quiz of 33 questions that you answer, and then you get the result.
And once someone knows what their love confidence score is, it can give them an idea of what they need to move forward.
It can definitely give them an idea of whether it would benefit them to work on their love confidence.
Yes.
Because and I will say it always does. It always can benefit, because even if you have a high confidence, then you want to know why you have that. You want to know the tools. You want to understand how your mind works, so that if at some point you need to boost your confidence, you need to grow your confidence, because that can happen in different situations in life, then you know the tools and you know how to work on it. You also know how to stay at that level. So I would say it always pays off to work on our love confidence.
Well, thank you, Laerke. There's so much for us to take away from this episode. Essentially, knowing where you lie on the love confidence scale, of knowing where you stand so that you're coming in from a place that honors who you are and the relationship you want to have.
Yeah, that was so beautifully put. Thank you so much for having me.
What will you take away from today's episode? I want to emphasize that while today's discussion centered on women who date men, the principles of curiosity, self trust, and building love confidence are universal. Whether you're dating, in a relationship, or simply exploring your own growth, these tools are here for you because everyone deserves a healthy, fulfilling relationship with both themselves and others. Here are a few highlights that really stood out to me. First is to replace love at first sight with curiosity at first sight. Stop looking for instant sparks and instead focus on curiosity. Ask yourself if there's something about the other person that just makes you want to learn more. This mindset opens the door for deeper, more authentic connections. Next is to look for green flags in early dating. Instead of focusing on surface level attraction or even looking deeply for red flags, pay attention to qualities like consistency, reliability, generosity, and initiative. These traits are stronger indicators of a potential match than we can often see when just focused on surface level attraction. Next is to build your love confidence. Your confidence in love starts with how you view yourself. Focus on being your own biggest champion by addressing your inner dialogue, embracing authenticity, and committing to your values and relationships. Finally, shift from expectations to discovery. Rather than showing up to dates with rigid expectations, approach them with curiosity and a willingness to explore. This shift not only reduces pressure, but also creates space for genuine connection. Laerke shared so much wisdom today, and if you're ready to find out your love confidence score, don't forget to check out her quiz. You can find the details in the show notes. Thank you for joining us today on this episode with Laerke Nielsen. I hope you're walking away with a fresh perspective on dating and relationships. Remember, it's not about finding love at first sight. It's about fostering curiosity and collecting the data you need to make empowered decisions. Whether it's spotting green flags, building your own love confidence, or staying true to your values, know that self-trust is your strongest ally in love. If you want to explore your love confidence further, check out Laerke's quiz and resources linked in the show notes. As always, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time on the Self-Trust Solution Podcast. Until then, keep building that self-trust and going after what you want. Are you struggling to follow through on your goals even though you know what you want? You're not alone. Doubts, distractions, and second guessing can make it feel impossible to move forward. That's why I created the Self-Trust Lab, a simple yet profound path to success. With the 3E Success Method, you'll master 3 core skills, overcome 3 common obstacles, and cultivate 1 essential trait, self-trust. This proven approach clears the mental clutter and gives you the tools to achieve your goals with clarity and confidence. It's more than a better way, it's the foundation for everything you're capable of achieving. Ready to step into your potential? Join the Self-Trust Lab today and begin your self-trust fueled journey at theselftrustcoach.com/the Self-Trust Lab. See you inside.